What up, dudes? It's Josh Mikel, Jared on The Walking Dead, and you're listening to Walking Dead Underground.
Now your hosts, Cinik, Igrihe, and Ryan.
And you are listening to the Walking Dead Underground podcast, and I'm your host, Cinik. And joining me, as always, and direct from the sewers below Alexandria, my co-hosts, Igrihe and Ryan. On this week's jam-packed show, I get the honor of sitting down and discussing the very versatile career of Mr. Josh Mikel. He instigates Morgan, he led the escape of the Hilltop prisoners, he also shot Benjamin. And it turns out he's just a great actor, because he's one hell of a cool guy. Jared joins the program. We also do a full breakdown and review of the fall finale of The Walking Dead entitled How It's Gotta Be. Because we are The Walking Dead Underground, at least for this week, half of this podcast now belongs to Jared. Like, listen, subscribe. Most importantly, enjoy the show. So our next guest is a writer, a director, and a musician, and he's also one hell of an actor. He's Negan's most dangerous savior. You know him as Jared on The Walking Dead. We welcome Josh Mikel to the program. Thanks for being here, Josh.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Joe.
All right, so as you know, I'm a follower of yours on Instagram, and I believe I've even watched you cook something the other night, and it looked amazing. So my first question to you, is there anything that you don't do?
Thanks, man. That's a very kind question. You know, I don't really, I'm not a very great singer. I'm not a very great dancer. I would like to get better. I do those things. So you know, it's good when you're an actor to have hobbies and have plenty of things to kill the time around not having auditions and stressing about not working and all that. And it's nice to just feel like a human being, you know, because the business has a way of making you feel like you're not the greatest person in the world, being told no so many times. So you know, it's nice to have something to kind of give you perspective, and I luckily have a number of those things.
I briefly understand that by going through these interview requests and asking as politely as I can just for 5 minutes of people's time and being told no. So I kind of get that from an outsider's perspective, that you get told a lot more than you get told yes, and that makes yes more, you know, more important to you. Oh
yeah, absolutely. I mean, you know, I just got off another interview and was talking about how many times I was told no for Walking Dead. I must have auditioned 15, 20 times before this one clicked. So it did. It was certainly oh shit, this is the best thing I've read for, and I'm so glad I got told no all those times before, because this is so much sweeter.
Okay, so we all know you're an actor, but I want to talk about a few things that I learned while I was getting ready for this interview. Like, number one, you're a drummer in a great indie rock band named Local Mexico. How long have you guys been a band? How long have you been drumming, and what are some of your musical influences?
Yeah, Local Mexico has been, we've been a band since we had our 10-year, I think 3 years ago or 2 years ago. So I guess some 12 years. I've been drumming since middle school, but I'm kind of self-taught. I was an 8th grade band, and then only to go to Disney World for their trip, and then bounced out. I think I left in 9th grade, and then just started playing with bands in my hometown, just playing with friends and stuff. And then we started playing out shows, and I went down to Florida State and got with this hardcore band for a second, and ended up getting kicked out of that band because I was not very good. And then I got better, and then met the guys from Local Mexico. We toured for a solid 7 years. We had a veggie bus, and in 2010, we made it all over the U.S. and you know, had a small amount of notoriety, but people were showing up to our shows, and we were really fans of. We still are. We still play, but it's become less of a thing because the guys have kids and families, and I'm trying to act, but we still play, and we're still writing, and but we were fans of a lot of the indie rock bands at the time, and who have kind of had this resurgence recently, like this particular band, American Football, and Minus the Bear, and you know, we were always big fans of Modest Mouse and Radiohead, and you know, just the National and Broken Social Scene, and we had a kind of a grab bag throughout our years of things that became kind of heavy in our rotation.
Yeah, I'm a bit of a musical snob, and it actually took to me right away. I liked the sound of the music. I ended up listening to it for most of the time I was prepping for the interview. Some really great songs. I mean, I believe one was "You Stay," and I go "No Following."
Yeah,
that was one of them, right? Yeah, great song, fantastic.
Thanks, man. Thank you. That actually made it to. It's one of our more proud moments. It made it to Rock Band Network. So it was like, and there was some, I don't know, there's like a rating scale, you know, like difficulty, and the drums were like 4 out of 5 stars, which I took a little pride in. I mean, I don't know, that's not really anything to take pride in, but yeah, it was rad.
Oh, I think it's amazing. I have a best friend who's used to drum for a band called Instruction. They were big for a few minutes, and you know, the music industry eats you up, but it's amazing what a drummer has to do. It's in your fingers and in your arms and your hands for a guitarist, but a drummer is like your whole body, and you've got to basically be ambidextrous, and you've got, you got to think out of both sides of your brain. It's amazing what a drummer has to do to be good at it. So I think that is something to really be proud of.
Yeah, and it was nice too, because the particular kind of music we play, you also have to be sober. So like if we're playing late in the night, you know, it kind of helped because we're playing kind of math rock. It's like what we always talked about it as accessible math rock, which is interesting time signatures, but with pop kind of sensibility. We get free beers, and you play a bar, you get free beers. I couldn't drink them, and so it saved me a lot of trouble actually, because I wasn't getting beer bellies, and the show would end, and I'd be like, all right, let's go home, and fine, I'll drive, like whatever,
So you're also a pretty accomplished music video director as well, and I had no idea about that. I mean, you've worked with Neon Trees and Jake Bugg and American Author, and watching some of those videos, you have a really defined and unique style. How did you come up with the way that you direct and the way you present these videos? Thanks,
man. Commanding a crew made me nervous, or it just became too much of an issue, especially with these videos where we weren't getting paid a whole lot, So I wanted to do something where I had kind of complete artistic control, and I wanted to make lyric videos. Most of them are lyric videos, so I wanted to make lyric videos that did have some sort of through narrative, and that also had kind of a sense of where you could kind of see how they were made. I wasn't too concerned with like not revealing how. I didn't want things to be super clean. I didn't mind if it was muddy and it looked like things were written on things or whatever, that it was kind of ragtag. But I just wanted kind of an approachable aesthetic, and that was kind of created by way of not having a lot of money to create these videos, but also because I think I wanted to make something approachable. But yeah, that was a cool way to pay the bills for a couple of years.
Well, necessity is the mother of invention, right? Like, so is lack of budget. So you figure out a way to kind of get around that. It reminded me a lot of Frank Turner's Losing Days video, where I believe they did a lot of it with tattoos and flashcards and stuff like that. I really enjoyed it quite a bit.
Yeah, I actually, Look Mexico toured with Frank. He's a buddy of mine. We toured. We took him out on one of his first U.S. tours before he started getting taken out with people like Flogging Molly and getting really huge. But yeah, he's a sweetheart. Actually, I pitched a couple of times for a couple of his videos. The Way I Tend to Be, I think, is one that I pitched for, and I didn't get. He's in the UK, so I didn't get a chance to do that one.
All right, so you get cast on The Walking Dead. Season 7 is Jared. I mean, it's 7 seasons into its run. Were you a fan of the show? I mean, you said you interviewed, or you tried out or interviewed for it or read for it a bunch of times. What was the process of finally being cast like?
Yeah, I was a fan of the show, but I wasn't watching it religiously because it was, the subject matter was just intense for me, and I was going through some shit, and it just was a darker show than I was wanting to watch. But a huge fan of the show because of what it's done for the industry here in town, and the optics it's brought to Georgia as being a film hub, and what it's done for every actor that is in town, and so that was kind of an amazing thing. But then since then I've been catching up and have caught up, and well, it's funny because so Jason Warner Smith and I, who plays Gavin, we both read for Jared and Gavin. and it was taping, which is crazy but I think, we had read enough for this particular casting director, Lisa Mayfin Cannon, who does a lot of stuff here and has used me in projects before Walking Dead. So she knew my work, but we were reading these dummy sides, which didn't have the characters' names. The scene was very, very close to our first pig exchange, but not that scene. And so we put ourselves on tape for both of those. They pinned me for one of them, but they didn't tell me exactly which one. I wasn't sure who I was playing yet. And then eventually it came down the pipes that my character's name was Jared. And I take a look at the first scene, and they send you your piece of the script. They don't send you the entire script. So, we log into this app called Synchronize, and they have your sides prepared with watermarks on them so you can't share them. And it was just an amazing thing, because it's certainly a rite of passage for a Georgia actor to get on this show, and it's something I had long wanted to do. Obviously, the fan base for this show is amazing, and to hop onto something that has so much steam in its 7th season, all this work has been done before I even showed up, and so many people have kind of put their time, hearts, and energy into making something that people really love. And then I'm suddenly able to hop on that train, which is an amazing thing.
I was in Georgia as a little kid, and it just shocked me that it's now like the hotbed for everything that's hip in TV and movies. Everything's being recorded down there. It's kind of amazing. So let's talk your character a bit. You made a direct impact. Directly, as soon as you get on the show, you start not playing nice with the Kingdomers, especially Richard. What was there tension in those showdowns with like Carl McKinnon and Lenny James, and especially the Bury Me Here episode? I mean, you guys get the testosterone up. You're standing eye to eye. Everybody's bringing their A game.
I think so. There was on that particular episode, because we knew we were saying goodbye to Logan. We knew we were saying goodbye to Richard, to Carl. We gave the scene its reverence those particular days, and I think people, it's a type of show that everybody always brings their A game, I think, or at least tries to, if you're not overworked or whatever. But you're really, they're doing great work there, and when you get on the biggest show or one of the biggest shows on television, you have to understand that everybody there is top of their game, and that translates all the way through the set. Every single person that's crewing the thing, and everyone you're looking at is best of their ability. And so those particular days, though, they were kind of important, and we knew we would be saying goodbye to Carl, and that was bittersweet. And it sucks to shoot Benjamin in the leg and end Logan's career on the show, but it's definitely my favorite episode of the season.
Well, you're pretty recognizable. Did you get any backlash from the fans for that?
No, and I wear my hair up like this. So the first time I actually got recognized was this year, before season 8 had premiered. I got recognized at my gym, but that's not really someone. I see this person every day, so they notice me on the show. But then not a lot of backlash, not a lot of angry backlash. People have a good way of compartmentalizing my character versus me as a human, which is nice.
So let me give you my impression of Jared. I thought he was, right off the bat, I thought he was a bit of a coward. I thought he was like a hide behind the numbers guy. I thought he would have never swung on Richard if you guys were one-on-one. And then you come back and you start talking shit to an obviously crazy Morgan. And in that moment, I gained so much respect for that character. I was like, this guy is a badass. I just couldn't believe it. But what's your opinion of Jared as a character?
Thanks, man. I mean, obviously he's a real piece of shit. It's funny because we talked about his backstory and him coming from a very privileged life, and I mean the way I was approaching it, the way I've been approaching it is that he's a character who has been through a certain amount of trauma, like everyone here in the post-apocalypse, and I think we have a way of devaluing human life, and my character in particular. So at this point, I think it's gotten to the point where I don't even value my own life. It's just kill or be killed and whatever. I think I have a nonchalance about living at this point. And I very much want to live, but it's more animalistic. It's not, I don't give a shit about who I'm treading on to get there, I think.
And this is what I enjoy about the show, because, I mean, with your character and with Carl's character, they really could have just mailed it in and got any actor, but they brought you guys in, and you guys have really, really good careers, and you have a lot of depth to the way you play the characters. It's so impressive the way that both characters are played, and especially when you were up against each other and how you played off each other. All right, so Benjamin dies, and Gavin sends you off. Did you think that was the end of your story arc, or did you think you'd be back?
No, I didn't. I didn't believe that would be the end of my story arc. And people always say if we don't see you die, you may be back on that particular show, because it's just, I think I had done enough, obviously, in killing Benjamin and leading to Richard's death, and in a roundabout way, being another ember in the all-out war fire. I did think that I would have to have some sort of comeuppance for my doing. So I did expect to return. To what ends that might be, I don't know, but I think people want to see me die, and I think that I think the show is good about payoff in that way. So
they bring you back, and you're captured after the satellite station battle, and you not only lead the escape, which, by the way, reminded me so much of Oh Brother Where Art Thou. They take you back to the hilltop, and you're still causing shit and trying to escape. I had a great conversation with William Bell, who I guess was your anchor he was the last guy on the end of the chain that when you guys ran off. Yeah, he said that you were giving him a bit of a hard time about it, which was pretty funny. But yeah, that did remind me of Oh Brother Where Art Thou, where you guys were running all handcuffed together, tied together. It was great the way they did that.
Yeah, that was a fun day. And Bill, William, such a good dude. I don't know if he told you that Greg asked him to put a rock in his shoe. He was supposed to have been shot in the leg, and he's slowing us down. So Greg Nicotero asked him to put a rock in his shoe. I think he ended up putting a water bottle cap in his shoe. And it gave him a substantial limp, which was he's a sweetheart.
So on our show, we've been extremely critical of Jesus's decision to let the prisoners live. Now, I'm not asking you to get anything away, but what's your feeling personally on that decision to bring the prisoners back to Hilltop?
I mean, I think I also too think it's a ridiculous idea. Especially he doesn't know the extent of my villainy. I don't know if he and Morgan have had that conversation about how dangerous I am. But I think bringing in all these guys, it's a dangerous thing. If it were up to me, I would have put a bullet in all of us, but I'm so glad they didn't, because I got a couple more episodes out of it.
There you go. So you have some really big name projects on the horizon. What's the biggest difference between shooting a TV show like The Walking Dead or being on a movie set?
With Walking Dead is, you have a new director every episode. So that's one of the larger differences between film and TV. And they have a shorter window to shoot a lot of action. They're shooting an hour in 8 days. Whereas films will have anywhere from 40 to 80 to 120, some of these larger action movies, to cover all that action. So they're doing a lot of work very quickly, and you're working with different folks who have different directing styles, and so that it's a different beast for sure.
Well, IMDb has you credited for Jason Bateman's Game Night and Marvel's Ant-Man and Wasp. What can you tell us about those projects?
Game Night, I think people are going to love the shit out of. It's a funny kind of comedy of errors. The cast is amazing. Lamorne Morris, Jesse Plemons, Kyle Chandler, Rachel McAdams, Jason Bateman, obviously, and it's bonkers. The film is going to be funny as hell, and it's directed by John Francis Daley and Jonathan Goldstein, who wrote the most recent Spider-Man, and folks will know John Francis Daley from Freaks and Geeks.
They really do stack comedies anymore. I mean, they really bring out good actors for these movies. for me, like Horrible Bosses is one of them. That cast was amazing, you know, and it's a comedy, and you got Kevin Spacey and Jason Bateman, and it was just huge. So I love the fact that they're doing that. I love the fact that we're not just relying on one person to carry a movie, you know, but it's more of a group effort. Yeah,
and it's funny to see Kyle Chandler is particularly hilarious in this one, you know, and you don't see a lot of his comedic work, but I constantly cracking up on set. And then, with Ant-Man, my stuff is relatively minimal, but I have some good stuff with Walt Goggins, and it's going to be, it's going to be awesome as well, I think.
That guy is amazing. What was it like to work with him?
He's awesome to watch. He gives a shit about it. You know, at one point he rallied his troops and had everybody over, you know, listen up, guys, like, you know, do this like you give a shit about it. And, you know, but he's a real sweet dude, and he keeps things really light and fun on set. And, you know, he's an actor whose work I really love. You know, he's a good model for, I think, young actors.
Well, Josh is a great follow on Instagram, and you can find his band Look Mexico on iTunes, where most other music is sold. And I personally hope Jared is around well into the next part of the season to instigate the heroes. I can't thank you enough for giving us time today and a chance to talk to you.
Oh, yeah. Thank you, Joe. I appreciate you having me, man.
Well, you know how they say only fools rush in? We start the episode with Rick and the Heapsters rushing in. Ryan, how many times have we ever seen someone enter in a combat-like situation with an army at their back of people who's already betrayed them? Conventional wisdom has to inquire, what stops them from just jumping back?
Yeah, that's what I've been thinking the whole time. And also kind of, I was just amused, I guess, by the look of seriousness that they all had. Now, granted, they are going into a battle, so I would be pretty serious. But just their body language looked like they submitted to Rick being their leader, and it just seemed all too convenient and too quick. But yeah, if I'm Rick, how do you trust them? You know, just it's just one of the parts of the writing that's a little sketchy. But yeah, it's like, how do you trust him?
I'm not sure. Again, I mean, last week I was like, I don't know why we're going to do this, why we're going to go get these people, but we did. And then, you know, Jadis with her line, it's like, not like pictures. Well, you know, I mean, sometimes pictures are staged, I guess. And the pictures were at least a couple of days old. You know, I mean, how long did they keep them in that box? Still, you go charging in. Yeah, let's go. We're going to run right in headlong, and there's nobody here. Shit.
They get out of the vehicle, they run directly into the line of gunfire. I don't know why Rick had to go in for a closer look. It made me laugh because it's like, all right. She's like, well, you know, we trusted you, and this isn't the way you said it was going to be. It's like different from picture. A little bit of gunfire. Rick dives for covers, and they're gone. There they go. I mean, IG, can you blame them? If you were Jadis, would you flee into preemptive retreat so fast that the French would be proud?
The French would be very proud. You know, famous French weapons only thrown down twice, right? So let's take a deeper look at that, right? They didn't even like double check, like, you know, fire off one shot. Maybe we can do something here. Nope. They just turned, and it was assholes and elbows because they were running. They were right there with Forrest Gump, and I think they would have kept up.
Yeah. If there was a fake wall, Ryan, would there just be a silhouette of a bunch of trash people running through it? Like, we're out of here. We're not putting up with this. You can't just hope for something. You have to do it. Hope isn't enough. Ryan, would you let young Carl know that rebellions are built on hope? Does his argument make sense? When your opposition is so set on domination, I mean, bro, just go hug it out with that rabid badger. It'll be cool.
Yeah, no, I think it's a little. I mostly liked the writing for Carl in this episode, but I think that was a little kind of heavy-handed. And yeah, I mean, it's just this. Everything about this is it's not going to end well for anybody, and you can't expect. You can't expect or look for the goodness in people at this stage. That's something that might come down the line. But when you're fighting for survival, I think, you know, you kind of have to, you know, expect the worst, and, you know, you hope for the best, but your attitude has to be, you have to approach everything as if the person has the absolute worst intentions.
And, you know, one of the few times I'm going to just flat out agree with Ryan is that the writing was good, but it was so like ham-fisted. It was just like, we're going to throw this right out in front of you, so that like immediately in the episode, I was like, Carl's dying. Carl's going to die. Carl's dying. I mean, because that's just how I felt like immediately. And it's because they've done this to us so many times. And okay, yeah, spoiler alert, he didn't die by the end of the episode, but it was still very almost downing, in a show that you get very excited in watching a lot of the times. Right now, this episode made me really feel very down at the beginning. It was almost a sorrowful episode.
A very special episode of The Walking Dead. Now, they've fallen into this cadence of they do this every single time something is going to happen to anybody that they at least make important for the episode. It's happened repeatedly over and over again where they climb on top of Morality Mountain and they cast aspersions at everybody around them. It's almost like it's a tryout for your next gig. It's almost like they're like, all right, Ryan, you're going to come in and do your best work ever. So hopefully you get another job after we write you off the show. See you later, buddy. Here's a fruit basket.
Got to showcase
it's
them a little
Christmas
bit.
time. So here's a fruit basket and we'll get you some meat and cheese and bon voyage. We get some 90s haunting guitar a la The Crow and a montage of the heroes all in peril, or they kind of sort of all look like they needed to use the restroom really bad until we reach Negan, who seems pretty proud of himself. I mean, he's laughing. He's having a good time. IG, was it some pretty dark and accurate foreshadowing? I mean, did it set the right emotional tone for the episode?
I think really it did. And, because the tide has definitely turned. And really, I mean, you saw some scenes later where you see how Daryl looks right now and he knows he done fucked up. He knows that this is his fault. Like everything was working and he decided I'm going to rush this up, and now the wolf is back at the gates. You had them all pinned in. Everything was good. Everything was working. And everything is turned around. They had won. Basically, they had won. And one stupid mistake, because you got to rush it all up, and nobody's winning anymore, and the saviors are ready, and Negan is pleased as fucking punch.
That bothers me because they have made Daryl so infallible. He can do no wrong on the show, in any of the fans' eyes. That bothers me a little bit because this is a direct result of him putting the saviors back up against the wall. Their feet were to the flames, but they probably wouldn't have got out if Daryl didn't do what he did. But yet the 3 or 4 times that he asked her in the episode, nobody would go, yeah, you kind of screwed the pooch there, Dixon.
It's weird writing for Daryl, and it's almost like you're just beating him over. It's almost putting him in a really shitty position. Like, how do you root for him now that he's kind of directly or indirectly caused the deaths of a lot of characters and caused so much chaos? It's a little strange, to say the least. And I think it does make, as much as I get annoyed with the writing sometimes, it does at least make for an interesting dynamic in the next half of the season. How does Daryl kind of reconcile that for himself? How does Rick deal with it? It makes for an interesting dynamic, but I don't see how if kind of indirectly leading to Glenn and Abraham's deaths was bad enough, like, how's he going to react to this? Like, he may just go off himself. Like, how does somebody come back from that if the other situation was so traumatizing for him? Because I think that was, the trauma for him was that, not being a prisoner. So yeah, I don't quite see where they're going. I'm interested, and I'll give them the kind of benefit of the doubt, but it really paints Daryl in a bad light, where he was infallible for a long time, and now he's really been the catalyst for a lot of what's gone wrong in the last couple seasons.
I know we took your guns, but here's some whiskey, and the new rock alternative band of Aaron and Enid go to rally the troops at Oceanside. But there's only one problem with this grand plan, because it doesn't make any sense, because when we were last at Oceanside, there was about 4 capable fighters, right?
4 of them, and now all of a sudden they're, a tribe just running around with spears. Really, really intricate.
What are we going to do?
spears.
Throw dead fish at the saviors? Did the plan make any sense to you, that this is what Aaron has? This is what he jumped in the car to race off for, is to grab a whole bunch of unarmed women who admittedly aren't fighters?
The only thing I can think is that, if the argument is, we need bodies, and by whatever means necessary, we need bodies, then I can kind of understand it, but it just felt like a reason to put him and Enid on their own little journey. It was like, we need a couple side stories. We need to fill we need to fill this extra 30 minutes. We got nothing to do with him, so let's put them together and go on this weird trip to go to Oceanside for no real reason, and it didn't make sense in the greater scheme of things at all.
Well, let me ask you this. Is it better to trust maybe the Oceanside clan over the Heapsters? Because, Rick went to go get them. At least the Oceanside actually has something against the Saviors. They might have a reason to want to fight them.
Yeah, no, I think I can see that argument. If you need bodies, then I can see that argument. But it's just confusing the timing, because they're 2 days. Supposedly, they had 2 days to finish out this plan. So are they going to get to Oceanside and convince them to come out there in 2 days? Like that, that's not the issue. It's like, yeah, if you need bodies, fine, but the timing doesn't make sense, especially with the way this plan is set and has been set into motion. And that's the part that's confusing to me.
But they brought whiskey, and I know if you bring Cinik whiskey, he'll go anywhere with you.
Whether you take my guns or not, I'll jump right in the panel van with no windows. I don't care if there's a puppy in there or not. You've got whiskey, I'm ready to go. All right, so this is going to be my rant for the episode. In a plan that could go nowhere but bad, Edith and Aaron decide to show up unannounced, park at the edge of camp, wait for night, which causes the Oceanside people to come in for a closer look. There's a ruckus. Edith and Aaron jump out of the car, and there could be no other people but the Oceanside people, but Edith decides that she's going to pop a few caps. I mean, IG, was this some of the worst writing ever on this show?
Why didn't she just scare them, shoot up, shoot into the ground, shoot somewhere else? No. Pop her. Now, granted, what's her name, the woman that he killed?
It doesn't matter now. She's dead.
She's dead, yeah. Well, Grandma, basically. You shot Grandma, and if you had a chance of getting them on your side, you kind of heard it a little bit at that moment, right? It's just run around the corner, pop, Although she did sound a little wicked witchy at the moment. You shouldn't have come here. about ready to stab him with her massive spear. It was poorly done. At the moment, I'm not sure I liked that kind of at all. It was pretty bad.
I hate to keep ragging on the show's writing, but it just it didn't. It seemed kind of it's manufactured. Like I think that's the issue with the writing, is when they write for the situation, and they don't allow things to kind of happen organically. So it's like, if we need tension, we need them to go on their little side journey. So we're going to do it, even if it doesn't fit into the context of the show. And then we need some tension while they're there. So we're going to create it. Again, it defies their characters and what they've learned as survivors in this world, but we're going to do it anyway. And so that's what happens a little too often, is that, it's like they know they need to get from point A to point B, but, or they need to get point A to point, Q, and they skip all the steps that you need to get there, and they just kind of ram it in, and it doesn't work, and it just makes for more than anything, it's like, it's confusing and baffling. So it's kind of, I didn't understand why they include this in this episode anyway, because it was a side story that went nowhere, and was unnecessary for the stakes that were, for the stakes of this episode, but also just that the way it was put together, just nothing really made sense.
Well, it might make sense later. They just rammed it in and then they left. Like, we got nothing else from that area. Yeah. So like the consequences or what happens as a result may come later. But when they do that to us in this kind of situation, it really disjoints us, and it makes us kind of go, well, what's going on? What's going to go on? That's the biggest problem with this, is that, we're expecting something, and they took a 5-minute thing in this area that turned into nothing, when if that's what they were going to do, they should have tied it into the episode where something is going to happen with the Oceanside, or they're going to come into the fight, something. But to go there and kill one of the people and then have someone go, no, come on. That could have stayed for the episode where they're actually coming.
Obviously, they're going to revisit this when they come back from season break, but it's like, I'm in peril. IG's in peril. Oh shit, Ryan's not in peril. All right, so Ryan and his little dog get in the car and go to Oceanside, and now they're in peril too. It was like Gibble decided, well, watch this. I'm going to juggle 25 flaming chainsaws, and only one of them landed. Only one came down. He threw them all up, and only one came down. And that was the problem in all this, was that regardless how the big reveal went, there was very little payoff in the end. We left in a worse situation than we did when we were coming back off of season 6. Everything they've done so far has been for nothing. If you listen to last week's episode, Ryan, because I know you weren't on it, but I casually remarked, I hope nothing terrible happened to Oceanside. Well, something terrible did happen to Oceanside. Enid and Aaron. At this point, do you think it's going to be a hard pass from the Oceansiders to help? I mean, does Hallmark make a card for this unlikely and tragic occasion? Sorry, I fired blindly into the dark and hit your grandmother with senseless plot hole bullets.
What's probably going to happen is they'll be taken prisoner, and one or two of them will talk. What's the granddaughter's name?
Cindy. We'll talk to Cindy, and she's going to become the new de facto leader because it was her grandmother, and she will decide that it's the right thing to do to go to battle. So she'll actually be the young, we already know her as somebody who does care and who's not as kind of militant, and as the rest of as her grandmother. So I think that we're going to see her make the decision, the noble decision to take Oceanside into battle. So I think that's what's going to happen next season. And we needed the grandmother off in order to allow her to kind of to elevate her own status.
So Cindy is the heir to Oceanside a la Game of Thrones style, right? You just got to do the family is.
Did we really need to bring this actress back just to do that? I mean, could we have just played off that she died off camera? I don't know if it's all going to be run out in the wash and they're going to just be forgiven for senselessly killing an innocent lady.
We need a great monologue.
Look, they had to bring her back, and they called her back in, and they offered her a fully stamped Subway Sub Club card to come in and get killed on an episode. So how do you turn that down? You get a free foot long and a drink.
A 9-inch foot long.
Come on. Well, how do you turn that down?
We're gonna get a great monologue about loyalty and not about about freeing the people from the saviors and that's gonna magically change her mind and she's gonna decide, you know what, screw this. I know you guys killed my grandma, but let's do this. So we can expect that from I'd say second or third episode next season. Next half season.
We didn't even get to see that actress's face, though, did we? I mean, we saw a shadow, so it probably wasn't even her. It was some extra. It's like, you look old and frail. Come over here and hold this spear while we dub somebody's voice on top of this. I'm wondering if they even called in the original actress for that, or they had some audio reel from something before. I don't know. I would have done it for a sub card.
Just about anything for a sub card. Listen, and by the way, not to be the PC police of the show, but extra is not a like term. They are referred to as background actors. Just so you know, don't say that to a background actor. Don't call them an extra. Those are fighting words. I know you're taking it back for your people, but still.
And I know someone who was on a reality show who kind of insisted that people called the reality reality people the talent, and would get mad if you didn't refer to them as talent. It's like, but that's the whole point of being on a reality show is you're not talented. You just happen to be on it. But yes, people take their titles a little seriously.
IG, and an ongoing theme of things that just can't be apologized for, Negan shows up outside of the Alexandria safe zone, demanding people whip up their most creative I'm sorries, and the lamest one dies. So on behalf of the people of Alexandria safe zone, I want you to give it a shot. Are you willing to tell Negan in the most heartfelt way that you're sorry?
How I would do this in the zombie apocalypse, I've been hoarding all the glitter glue. So I would just make a nice poster with glitter glue saying how sorry I am. And I think, Negan would like that. Can you imagine?
Well, it's very creative and flamboyant. Would you have this prepared before, just in case they showed up?
I'd have had posters made for any kind of situation. There's a lot of time and no TV or internet. So you got time to kill. I'd have just been making posters willy-nilly. Sorry, congratulations on the new baby. Hey, we stole your guns, whatever. I'd have a poster for everything.
Ryan, from the files of being totally caught with your pants down, our heroes are attacked on all three sides. Alexandria is attacked. The Kingsman's attacked. Hilltop's convoy is stopped dead in its tracks. Sorry, Neil, whoever the fuck Neil is. Was it disappointing to you that the heroes put up so little fight? I mean, why on this show does it always have to be feast or famine? From one week to the next, you are either a genius or an idiot, depending on the week.
I actually liked that part of the episode. So there are parts that I didn't like, but I liked that they kind of subverted our expectations. So we've been the whole season, the Saviors have been on their heels and mostly defensive. Even their victories, it's kind of like more from a defensive standpoint. So. And we leading up to the episode, we just expected, well, this is going to be it. This is where, they combine forces and they attack the Saviors and they force them to surrender or kill them. And so the fact that when we start this episode, it's like, nope, somehow Eugene's ingenuity has freed the Saviors and they've been able to surprise everybody. I really like that because I completely subverted my expectations. I thought that being the mid-season finale, I figured that Negan and the Saviors would quote win this battle because we need something to look forward to for next episode. Like our heroes need to be pinned down. But I thought that they would their winning would be escaping the sanctuary, not that they at the end, not in the beginning. So I actually like that, and it made sense. Like again, they were caught off guard, and we realized that the Saviors just have the numbers. So when you have those kinds of numbers, once you're free, that's it. And I think what I didn't like though is it's just more of the same. So at the end of the day, this isn't much different from things we've seen this a number of times, which is the Saviors showcasing their numbers and forcing people into submission. So I didn't love that. It essentially plays out the same way we've seen this play out many other times, but I did like that it subverted our expectations for what was going to happen this episode.
All of season 8 has, and to use wrestling terminology, has been a squash match. There's never been an even fight or an even battle. For the people at home listening, what a squash match is basically Saturday morning when the stakes weren't high, but they wanted to get a superstar on, they would have Hulk Hogan on, but they would have Hulk Hogan on and he would fight Joe, who hosts a podcast, who's never wrestled a match before. Hulk Hogan runs to the ring and beats Joe within 10 seconds of the bell sounding. And that's been this whole season, it's been the heroes running in and just killing people with no names and very little screen time. And that's the only thing that's bothered me was there's never been a fair fight throughout this whole all-out war. It's been all-out squash. And one week, Rick's group looks like geniuses because they pull up and they blast everybody. Next week, Simon and the boys get out and they just stop Maggie and that whole convoy without a fight. It just didn't make a lot of sense to me. We're supposed to be equal opponents regardless of numbers.
Well, I think that this is one place where the writing did work is that, so Daryl does his whole side mission, unbeknownst to almost everybody outside of, from what I understand, Morgan and the snipers. So you have a situation where their expectation is they're surrounded by a horde of zombies and a massive horde. They have no way out. We bring all of our forces down. So now they did let their guard down, and they probably should have had a system set up so that if the Saviors escape, there was a way of letting everybody in the groups know. So I think that is problematic. But at the end of the day, we know that the Saviors have the numbers and they have the weapons, and if they can escape, that they're a formidable force for anybody. So I don't only because Daryl made that error basically, and nobody knew about it. I don't blame the writing too much for that. I actually think it works out that, and that's kind of like again more pro wrestling terms, like the comeback. So this is a point where the heels come back and they're probably going to dominate, because that's usually what happens in a pro wrestling match is the heel has to come back and dominate most of the fight. So I think this is a point where we expected this no matter what, expected that Negan would win this battle. I just didn't expect it this way, but I'm okay with it.
IG, is anyone having a worse week than Jerry? He loses his friends. He loses his battle axe. He loses his king. He's just driving down the road trying to warn everybody, and he gets crashed into. And now he's on his knees in front of Maggie, being used basically as human bait.
And his hair is messed up. I mean, it's a bad week. You get a little bit of bloody nose, and your hair's messed up, and somebody's holding a gun to your head. He's having a pretty rough week. The king is not acting like the king anymore, so he just wants to stand outside with his vest on and roll D20. I don't know. I feel really bad for Jerry. And there was a moment earlier when he crashed, I was like, Jerry better not be fucking dead. Oh my God. There aren't enough Jerrys in the world. We can't lose this one, that's for sure.
Yeah, I love Cooper in the role. I don't want to see him go anyplace anytime soon. Ryan, did the decision to take the Hilltoppers' guns and just run along, just go back home, go farm, just seemed to be like you'd want to do something to their army to kind of take the wheels off their machine. Oh, and by the way, They have 30 so hostages back there, and that was never even addressed.
Yeah, so again, I just said that was a part of the writing I was happy with. I'm going to go to a part that doesn't make sense. So, with Alexandria, you go there and you bomb the shit out of Alexandria. With the kingdom, they take over the kingdom. But yeah, we're just going to let the Hilltop go do their thing. That didn't make sense. Why not send the group to take over the Hilltop? So yeah, you're right. Like, I didn't quite get that. It was just kind of, it's almost a situation of, and even Maggie says it, we're going to, essentially everyone's going to come here, so is that what it is? So that part didn't make sense. You'd think you'd want a group at each location to make sure that the people in those locations are taken care of, or at least your, hostages or whatever the case is. So yeah, that didn't quite make sense to me at all, especially, you've got the three, right? The king, Rick, and the widow. So why is the widow not captured? Like, why did he just let her go? That didn't really makes no sense.
Yeah, he's like, well, Gregory kind of let me down. Maybe you could be in charge. And Maggie's already showed that she's a wartime general. You don't want to leave her in charge. If anything, you want Gregory back in charge, if anything. Or that guy that you just shot that we never heard of, Neil. Neil is perfect to be in charge because he doesn't know how to rally the troopers' set defenses. We jump back to Alexandria and people are scattering, but Carl dishes out a pretty solid plan of diversion to get the non-fighters out and a counteroffensive. IG, watching in the moment, did you believe the plan could work? And do you trust Carl Grimes to make life or death decisions, especially with that hat on?
While the standard answer for me on that would be no, for some reason, I bought it in this episode. His conviction and his willingness to stand there and be like, I got this. I was buying it. I really bought into that. Carl's role in that, he was doing amazing. I liked the acting. I liked how it was set up, and I believed that it would work because he just was, the conviction and the acting was spot on. So yeah, I believed it would work. Absolutely, I did.
There's kids here, goddammit, and they don't need to see this shit. Back at the kingdom, Gavin gives his decree, hand over the king, and no one gets hurt. Oh, and by the way, we're taking your small little town, and you guys get the honor and pleasure of going back and fixing Sanctuary. Ryan, what are your thoughts of Gavin as the reluctant Negan? And would you watch an HGTV show where they renovate Sanctuary? Maybe we get Eugene the host.
That's an amazing idea. I would love to see that. It almost makes me wish that this turned out a little bit different just to watch them try to fix up Sanctuary. I think makes sense as a Negan-esque plan, and I do see how you're right. Like, I think the reluctant Negan would be the right thing, because you can see there's like a decent person kind of hiding in there, but he also realizes, that he can't let that show, but it kind of does. And, as you can tell there's some kind of a struggle with it. And maybe that's something that we'll see explored a little bit in the future. But, that makes sense. I think that plan there kind of falls in line with how the Saviors would act. I thought it was a little, I know this is a little bit forward in the future, but what didn't fall in line for me was when there was a little diversion that everybody disappeared, and all of a sudden all the people of the kingdom were able to escape without any problems. That didn't make sense. But I thought that, the plan there worked out pretty well. It's just like, again, let's all go see this one diversion and not one person stay back to make sure that these people don't just escape. I just happened to find
what kind of Star Wars like isn't that a little stormtrooper mentality? Yeah, the noise is over there.
Well, think about it. This episode, like this season, has kind of been like, Star Wars and Empire Strikes Back. And I think we're getting Return of the Jedi next in the second half. Like, so far, this feels very much to me like up through Empire Strikes Back, and then we'll get Return of the Jedi, I guess, next half season.
So Ryan is predicting Ewoks.
Yes, I am predicting Ewoks.
I would like to know why there aren't any Walker Little people. I mean, give me a herd of Walker Little people, and I would never stop watching the show. I think we should start a grassroots campaign and demand it. I want some Walker Little people. It's very discriminatory that we haven't seen any yet.
Yeah.
IG, is this the plan? Do you want it to be this way? Is this who you set out to be? Even though it was a distraction, was Negan right? Were him and Carl having a moment? And is Carl the only person left in the whole apocalypse that could possibly talk Negan down or talk him out of anything?
Well, the funny thing is here, for whatever reason, and I don't know why, it's almost as if Negan views Carl like a peer, like an equal. And he doesn't really view any of the other communities with somebody there as an equal, but he treats Carl like he's like on the same level. And it's not so much like a father-son kind of thing, because it's not that way at all, or a coach-player kind of thing, because it's not really that way. It's like head coach versus head coach, and Carl has been running shit for all of 30 seconds. So, but he was treating him that way, even except for, let me see that eye, kid. He's been treating him that way kind of all along, and he has a pretty healthy respect for Carl. So, yeah, they were having a moment from Negan's side. Carl was playing him a little bit, and that's going to hurt their relationship. But, you know, they can probably come out from that.
Carl offers to die if it'll stop things, if it'll stop the war, if it'll change anything. Ryan, when he's basically offering himself up on a platter, were you thinking that there could be something wrong with him, maybe a possible pre-existing condition?
No, I didn't think that any more than I didn't think that at all, really. I think that there was some suspicions of it because of what happened last episode, but I think him offering himself just made sense as either a ploy or that he's getting killed off. So I think I kind of just read that as, well, one way or another, either he's, they're using this to get out of the situation and he's lying, or, Carl's probably going to die. So, this is kind of setting it up or foreshadowing it or preparing us for that.
So Simon tries to strong arm Maggie into cooperation with threats of her public execution, Jerry's death, a Walker herd at Hilltop. In the end, she agrees, and they let her just walk away. Even though, like Ryan said before, the widow, the king, and Rick. Why doesn't Rick get a nickname, by the way? That bothers me a little bit. The guy with the accent. Anything. Give him something. The sheriff. IG, do you think they underestimated Herschel's daughter a little bit? Could this come back to be the Savior's fatal mistake?
I think it will come back to be their fatal mistake. I mean, Maggie has shown the aptitude to make things happen, and she's done it repeatedly. I mean, the reason that they kicked the Saviors and the Heapsters out of Alexandria last season is more Maggie than probably anything else, because they showed up in force. Yeah, they brought a big fucking tiger and King Ezekiel and his people, but Maggie's group of hillside non-fighters or hilltop non-fighters really kind of made the edge in that. They turned the table, because when you can take people that just aren't fighters and get them to fight effectively, you're a fucking strong leader. So you can't let Maggie just continue to go.
We jump to Haircut not being able to sleep back at Sanctuary, and his conscience gets the best of him despite the giggle juice. So he decides to free Carson 2.0 and Father Gabe. Ryan, Gabe looks like he's in some rough ass shape. Is he going to be able to survive this trip?
Yeah, I don't know about that. I think he will survive as the story needs him to survive, and I expect him to, because I think they don't write people. They don't write deaths like that on the show. So I think he'll survive it, but he's in rough shape. I think, again, this much like the Oceanside subplot or side plot kind of felt like unnecessary. So again, it was one of those things. It was one shot. We got a couple minutes of it, but it just felt like a waste. Like we really didn't need that scene. That's something that could be thrown in the beginning of an episode next season, or could have been thrown in at the end of last week's episode. But again, with everything at stake in this episode, it really didn't feel like it had a place there, and we didn't revisit it, and it felt just unnecessary and like filler to meet the hour and a half. So I thought the episode was the scene was fine, but I just didn't see why it was really necessary.
Now hold on, I'm gonna disagree with you now, because the scene was necessary because the amount of hate that Eugene had been getting lately. They needed to show some redemption and get people back on the Eugene train for the second half of the season. Because like while I was live tweeting the show, I kept seeing people saying, "Oh, Simon and Eugene are both still alive. Someone needs to kill those people." People needed to realize that Eugene is a victim of circumstance. He's somewhere that he's very much a coward and doing everything he can to keep himself alive. But what this showed is that given the right opportunity, he will make a good decision. And that's exactly what he did. So you get a little bit of redemption. Has he gone back fully the other way? No, but it shows that he's still got something in him that's going to keep him as maybe a player to undo the savior.
We see the internal struggle with him. We can see that he's drinking more and that he's not happy. He's not happy with himself for the decision. So we know that there's a bit of a struggle. We just also know that he's out for himself. If you're going to do that. So the other thing is this, I think that if Eugene does eventually make the right decision, then it should be a little bit more of a surprise. Like, so if you want to, let's say you want to write the scene where they just happen to stumble upon a key to a car and a note and leave us, obviously we'd know, like we'd have an idea that it was Eugene, but maybe give us, make it a little bit more vague or leave us room to think, what happened. Maybe they just stumbled upon it. Maybe Eugene's helping them out. If you're going to make Eugene kind of a villain, make him a villain until he does have his redemption. Like, I'd rather, if he does redeem himself, I want him to redeem himself, kind of after being beaten, us kind of beating him down and hating his character. But to have this, then it kind of puts him in the middle ground. And I still think he's made more bad decisions, at least as far as his own team is concerned, than good. So I still don't feel good about him or his decisions. He's still out for himself, and he's not going to make a decision for the betterment of the group unless it's his death. So I don't know. I don't quite buy it.
Well, we want our heroes to act heroically, right? But meanwhile, 99% of the population is just riddled with self-interest. Every day, people act in their own betterment and not worry about who they step over or who they hurt in the process. But you have a character on a show that's supposed to be a good guy, and he acts in self-interest, and people lose their minds. Eugene's no different than you sitting at home. And the funny part about it is the culture is so screwed up to the point where when somebody does do the slightest thing right, like return a purse, they're a hero. We throw around the term hero quite a bit anymore for things that are just people being decent. And Eugene is a reflection of the culture. Most people aren't going to risk their hide for their friends. Most people aren't going to risk their lives. So when it comes down to it, yes, he's got a great sense of right and wrong, but he's still going to worry about himself. In the end, he's number one. So he'll do good things when he can. He did it for Sasha. He helped Sasha get out when she needed to get out. But at the same time, if it's down to you or him, it's always going to be him, unless he can do something that's completely untraceable to him.
I see it now. I think this could be traced to him because not many people are left back there. So I think he kind of stuck his neck out a little bit further than he would have liked to. I don't know. This gave me a little hope for Eugene.
Yeah, I think they're doing that. They're stringing us along. And I think ultimately he will do the right thing and switch sides back, whether they take him back or not. Well, let's look at what they're doing to poor Dwight. All right. The escape, Dwight leads the chase. He not only springs the trap that he clearly sees in front of him, but he also kills his own men. And when it's all over and they've won and only one savior has escaped to tell the tale, they still all look at him like they want to kill him. Outside of Denise, which was a pretty big faux pas. It was a pretty big mistake. Outside of Denise, what has he done so reprehensible that they can't just look at everything he's done for them and say, all right, he's trying to make up for it. Meanwhile, like we've said earlier, Daryl is directly responsible for numbers of death, but meanwhile, no one bats an eye towards him. So we're going to beat up on poor Dwight, who's on the ground and shot, and we're going to browbeat him. But the whole reason we're in this mess right now is Daryl, and whatever he asks, well, oh, was that my fault? And everybody goes, oh, no, Daryl, you're blameless in all this.
And that's the thing is, the current situation by and large is Daryl's problem. It wouldn't be as bad. All right. Glenn would still be alive had it not been for Daryl. The saviors would still be trapped in sanctuary if not for Daryl. There's so many things going on right now. And meanwhile, Dwight has killed one of the group, just one, and he stole Daryl's vest, which, that's unforgivable, I guess, as far as Daryl is concerned. He stole his vest, and, Daryl isn't Daryl without the vest, and he has his vest back now, so he's pretty happy. But what do you do? I mean, all these other people can make mistake after mistake, and, they're just forgiven because they've been on that team the whole time. But, what happens when somebody gets traded from another team? That's basically what's happening. He got traded, or he went free agent and signed with the new team and just brought the playbook from the old team. And it's like, here's what's going on. So, football analogies are by and large a good way to do this because everybody understands football, right? Probably not. Never mind.
I can understand a little bit. So, I feel like I can understand Daryl and Tara's anger towards him. Daryl, to a large extent, is also just, it's kind of him projecting his own anger with himself. He's the enemy. He's, so it's, but Daryl realizes he made his own mistakes. And so I think that it's an easy object to project his own kind of self-loathing at. So I can understand that. And then Tara, it's like, who wouldn't be upset if you're in her position? So I can understand her, and for everybody else, like, he's still the enemy. So you're going to be a little skeptical. I think that they've accepted him, but it's not going to be with open arms. He was, there and, at least complicit in a lot of horrible things that the saviors did. So I can understand that. I think with Eugene, it's more also that he has had opportunities to help out, and he won't take it. And so, but I think Eugene makes a great argument that, it has made great arguments that they're kind of they've all done horrible things. So he's, does just kind of make sense to look out for yourself. And I think though, when he does redeem himself, he dies. I don't see him redeeming himself and being accepted. So I think, I think for him, it's like he'll do it in his death, which will probably be, I'll predict in this season.
Well, for as angry as they want to be, and I get by the end of the episode, they're not living on Easy Street or anything, Ryan, but where would Rick's side be without Dwight at this point? I mean, every good thing that's happened or the war is directly related to Dwight.
No, you're absolutely right. And I think they're still all traumatized. So it's just one of those things where in hindsight, they'll have to realize it, but I think it's hard to given everything that's happened, they're still decimated. And I think, yes, if Dwight were to stop and say, hey, look, you guys would not be here at all if it wasn't for me. That, it's absolutely a fair point. And I think it's a point that they do have to accept. And I think that they do have to take him in, but I can understand in that situation, not really being able to do that mental math. Right now it's just like we barely survived and we're decimated. Where the hell do we go from here? I think later on they can say, oh wait, this really largely, both the initial plan worked largely due to Dwight, but this, Dwight saved us in this situation. So I think he will get credit and he deserves credit, but I think also the circumstances may dictate that they're all kind of just going through some trauma.
Save them like you did me. Ezekiel distracts the saviors so his people can flee, and then basically locks himself inside with them. IG, is Ezekiel in a tight spot, or do you think that Carol and Morgan lurking around on the outside are going to be able to save him before they get him back to wherever the next savior area is?
Well, isn't that the next savior area? They're kind of in it, realistically. So, too late for that. But the thing that struck me here is King Ezekiel being the king again. He took the opportunity to do something for his people and did it. And so I'm thinking that the king may not be fully back, but he's on his way. And I think that combined with Morgan and Carol gives us a lot of opportunity moving forward to get the king back to full power.
Back at Hilltop, Maggie shows up and puts an absolute show on by capping one of the saviors in cold blood. Ryan, although it was out of character, were you happy that she finally dug her heels in and she's making a stand?
Yeah. I mean, I think it might be misguided to do that right so quickly, especially if the saviors do the smart thing and send a group up there to hold things down at the Hilltop. But it's good that she's made her decision. I think it's really important for the show and for the season moving forward that it's basically it's all or nothing, and that's what it has to be. They can't lay down, and they can't give up. They're just going to have to fight with whatever they can and whatever they have. And so I think it was an important decision for her to make as a leader. And, I'm glad to see her take that step.
Do you ever shut up? No. A great back and forth between Rick and Negan as they're finally in the same room. We finally get a little bit of a showdown, even though it was brief. IG, what did you think of the exchange, the small fight? And has Rick ever actually won a fight against anybody?
Well, not one-on-one. I don't think he has, because he tends to kind of limp away from every encounter he gets into. It just, because the same thing happened with the governor. He kind of got his tail kicked by the governor, too.
He got his ass kicked by Porch Dick.
Yeah, right? Just come on. The one part of that fight I really kind of dug was when, Lucille had come out of Negan's hands and Rick picked up Lucille and Negan lost his mind. Get your hands off of her, he yelled. I was like, oh shit, he's got a little bit of a complex about the bat.
Ryan, we leave the half season with our heroes huddled together in a stinky, dark, wet sewer. A feeling that most of the fan base could probably identify with right now. And we finally get the big reveal. I mean, the worst kept secret in Walking Dead universe, Carl is in fact bitten. What's your feelings on the reveal, the episode, and your rating for how it's got to be?
Okay, so the reveal was really good. I think that we knew somebody big was going to die, a major character, and throughout I'm going back and forth. Who's it going to be? Is it going to be Carol? Is it going to be Ezekiel? Is it going to be Carl? And I think Carl we all expected. And it's interesting mentally kind of what's going on. So when they go to that final montage, I'm thinking, well, Carl's not there, so he's not going to die, because Carl needs to die in front of Rick. Like that needs to happen. He can't die not around Rick. It needs to happen. So I thought maybe Carl gets captured, but he won't die. So who else is it going to be? But then they show that Carl's actually there, and it's like, oh, great. So Carl's there, so he's not going to die. But then who is it going to be? And then he reveals the bite, which I totally, for some reason, I just didn't expect it. So I think that reveal works, and it was gut wrenching. I think that this was a great episode for him. And I think so, as far as this episode is concerned, I think it was up and down, but the things I liked was everyone's performance was really, really strong. And I think Carl was maybe the MVP as far as his performance. It was really good. He showed strength as a leader. It was believable. And I really bought him this entire episode, which doesn't always work. And I think just all of the performances across the board, bad, weird scenarios aside, were really, really good. You felt the shock and tension and dismay in Rick. You could see the King Ezekiel when he saw that his people were in peril, the shift, he changed back to the King, and it happened instantly. And you can see it almost in his eyes, like in his reaction. I just think throughout everybody's performance was really, really good. And again, like I mentioned before, I liked the stuff with the saviors kind of defying our own expectations. I think the problems, though, again, is like this episode is a microcosm of the whole season, which is that you had an hour's worth of good stuff and it was inflated into an hour and a half by stretching some stuff and by adding in filler. And I think that if you just kind of cut a lot of that fat, you had a really strong episode. And the other issue is just that we're basically where we started in the beginning of the season, with the exception of, both sides have lost a lot of people, and that's pretty much it. So we're at the same spot where the Alexandria Hilltop Kingdom are all, in peril, and Negan and the Saviors are kind of dominant and in control. So, it feels like not a lot has happened, even though we had 8 episodes and a lot of kind of action for the first half of the season. So, I think that's a negative for me. I'm hopeful for next season and I mean the next half. And I think that things are set up for a solid second half. And I hope that they're able to kind of get past some of these writing issues. I think as an episode, a lot of it worked, a lot of it didn't work. So I'm going to give it a 7, maybe on a good day, a 7.5. Definitely not the best episode of the season, but not bad. Just kind of up and down, a little bit all over the place. But yeah, I'd say 7.5 would be my score.
I think you're on the mark with a lot of what you just said, because if I could rate the writing and acting separately, I would give the acting almost a 10. Everybody brought it this episode. Everyone, and especially Chandler, he was spot on. Chandler killed. And it's funny because The Walking Dead, your last day of work, is kind of like everybody else's job first day at work. You're on your best behavior. You're doing everything you should. And when you're about to be written off the show, it seems like everybody gives their strongest performance. I would give the acting about a 10, the writing plot-wise about a 6. So I'll call it a 7.5 for myself. I've never been a huge fan of Carl's character, but I hate to see Chandler leave the show. He was the first cast member I ever got to meet. He was extremely young at that point when I met him, but he was very personable, very kind, and very nice. And I'll always miss his inability to stay in the house. I'm not sure what's happening with the show this half of the season with the writing, or why they made such huge breaks from the source material. And you're going to see a division coming in the fan base between Team Gimple and Team Riggs, because the story that we got originally about Chandler wanting to go off to college may not be the entire truth. I hope adjustments are made in the second half of the season. This jumping from spot to spot completely kills momentum for me. They need to right the ship before they alienate the entire audience, and we have to change the name of the show to The Walking Debbie Downer.
I'm right on board with you guys. I give this a 7. The acting, again, 10, but the writing probably a 6, maybe a 5. What I look at this episode like, and really the whole first half of season 8, is like the building blocks to everything else. So what they used to do in one episode where they had a building episode, they kind of did over 8 episodes. I think maybe they just didn't know how to build it and keep the story moving and put enough in a whole season, so they had to stretch for the first half. At least that's what I'm hoping. I have a lot of faith because things are set right now to have a holy shit moment for the back half of this season. And not only one, but many, many, many moments. I can't say anything better than you guys said with this review, by the way. You know, you guys really nailed it down, so I'm going to just close it there and say, you know what? There it is. From The Walking Dead Underground. We're going to give this a 7.25. Pretty good episode. Good way to close the mid-season. We'll be back when the season comes back with more Walking Dead Underground for you. In the meantime, in the Cinik Radio podcast, we're going to be bringing you all the new stuff or things we missed while we were covering The Walking Dead. That means Star Wars, probably some Stranger Things, and a lot of other surprises. Come back, listen to the Cinik Radio podcast while The Walking Dead is on hiatus. We're still coming. So you've reached the end of The Walking Dead Underground Episode 9, where we reviewed Season 8, Episode 8 of The Walking Dead, How It's Gotta Be. We love bringing it to you. We hope you love listening. Share it with all your friends, family, loved ones, and even maybe people you don't like, because they might become a better person for listening to The Walking Dead Underground. I'm your host, Igrihe. With me have been Cinik and Ryan, my co-hosts. We love every single one of you, and we can't wait to be back with you. Until then, send your comments and questions to CINIKRADIO@gmail.com. Look for us on the internet at CINIKRADIO.com. Find us on Facebook at Facebook.com/CINIKRADIO. Or join The Walking Dead Underground. On Facebook, look for The Walking Dead Underground. Join the group. 20,000 plus subscribers, and there's a whole lot of fun going on every single day. You can also find us on Twitter at Cinik Radio and on Instagram at Cinik Radio. We'll be back with all new Walking Dead episodes when The Walking Dead comes back in February. Until then, we'll be filling in with all kinds of other stuff that we love and we know you'll love. Come on back, share it with everybody. We love every single one of you, and until next time, don't get captured.
Follow the podcast on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and at thewalkingdeadunderground.com. Join us in our fight against the saviors.